Hey everyone, in this video I'm going to be engaging with the subject of how we look to interact with the prevalence of pornography in our world, especially when it comes to our kids.
But the thing about pornography addiction, which people don't realize, is studies show first and foremost that most addiction happens between ages of 10 and 12. The other thing is they've actually done brain scans, actual brain scans on children who are addicted to pornography, and they have found that the hard wiring of the brain, the actual shape of the brain changes. It actually changes. There's a physical effect of pornography addiction. And they said that the high that people get from watching pornography is the same high that people get from using cocaine and heroin.
This is really significant, and especially when we're talking about all of us, but when we're talking about kids, just what she was saying there, the last statement about it having a similar effect as hard drugs on our brain, that this is not just sort of something in our mind. It's not something that we can treat just casually. Like that, this has a big impact on us. And especially when you're talking about kids. When you're talking about kids, and I remember back when marijuana became legalized in the United States and in California and in a whole bunch of other states, I was trying to look into it because as a pastor, we were no longer in the position of just saying it's illegal, so you can't do it. We were now in a position of saying, all right, how do we have a fuller understanding of how we engage with this? Because we don't say all drinking is wrong. But anyway, part of what I looked up in different things is there was not clarity on what sort of occasional marijuana use did to the adult brain, if it had a significant effect. But what was clear is if you did it while you were young, it definitely did have an effect. And so pornography affects anybody who's interacting with it, but especially kids that are young. And this is so difficult because the access, she's about to talk about, the access to it is so much more simple than it would have been in a past time.
Three things about pornography. It's the AAA engine. It's affordability. Pornography is cheap, is free, and if it's not free, it's very cheap. Accessibility. You can access it anywhere. In the old days, you used to have to go to a video store. Now I could be watching it on my phone in front of you at the dining table, and you would have no idea. Affordability, accessibility, and anonymity. The fact that nobody knows you're doing it. So what we as parents need to do is we can't do anything about the affordability, so we need to take away the accessibility and the anonymity.
I think that this is good practical advice that she's talking about here. And I think that this is something where this obviously goes beyond just talking about kids. This is talking about all of us now. But when we think of the accessibility thing that she was talking about, that obviously pornography, sexual immorality in general, but just sort of like the general sense, like pornography is not new, and sort of like strip clubs and things like that are not new, but there used to be a bigger risk involved with it. And there used to have to be more things that you would have to do to get access to it. And so you could be in a situation where, let's say somebody is like, this is appealing to me, but I'm just not even willing to leave the house right now to go get access to what I need to get access to. Or I'm not going to take the risk of buying something or renting something and having somebody else see me there and find out what's going on. So there would be certain things that would be levels of prevention. Now, sometimes we could look at that and say, well, so the only thing that was preventing you was sort of these practical matters, like the heart still is not in the right place. And that's true. We've still got to deal with the heart issue behind that. But there are all sorts of things in life that just having sort of a fencing off of saying it's not easy for me just to immediately go to this very harmful, sinful thing. This is actually the argument that some people make about just the proliferation of guns. It's just the idea of saying, what would have happened in some of these conflicts if the gun just wasn't available? Would it have just calmed down, or with suicides, would the person just have kind of calmed down and come back to their right mind? I think that it is wise for us to say, obviously, we want to deal with the heart issues that lead pornography to be appealing to us, but we also just want to do some prevention. We want to put ourselves in a position that it's more difficult for us to do it, and it's more difficult for us to get away with it, because this is so dangerous and this is so harmful that we want to find ways out of it. So what she's saying is certainly true of how we're dealing with our kids, that we need to, there's this weird thing that goes on now where it's like, well, but that's my kid's privacy and I don't want to invade their privacy. I don't know. I think that's wild. I think that's crazy, especially when we're talking about grade school kids, but even when we're talking about teenagers. I think that you absolutely need to invade their privacy on this issue. And, whether it's putting some kind of filter on their phone, having time limits, things like that is incredibly helpful. But I think that it's helpful beyond just our kids. I think that it's helpful for all of us, especially us as men, but probably for women also, that we try to figure out ways to get rid of the anonymity of it through, whether it's filters or accountability software, and that we also try to limit the accessibility of it so that it's not just constantly there. I've said to people before, man, like your chances of saying no to temptation once a day are a lot better than having to say no to temptation 300 times a day, where it's just like, it was 299 out of 300 and I slipped up. Man, our chances are much better if we're just wisely limiting our accessibility and our anonymity for both ourselves and for our children.